Hello guys, it's me Samir Khan and welcome back to my channel Sam's Classroom. Today in this video let us learn about mitochondria. Mitochondria are small spherical cylindrical organelles. These are generally 2 to 8 microns long and about 0.5 microns wide. There are nearly 100 to 150 mitochondria in each cell. When compared to the size of nucleus, the size of mitochondria is nearly 150 times smaller than a nucleus. When we observe these mitochondria under a compound microscope, we can see small dot-shaped structures. If we want to see the unique structure of mitochondria, we have to observe them under the electron microscope. When we observe these mitochondria under the electron microscope, we can see the mitochondria are double membrane walled structures. The inner membrane of the wall protrudes into the interior folds and forms structures which are called cristae. And the space between this cristae is known as matrix, and the matrix is filled with a fluid. Mitochondria are generally responsible for cellular respiration, a process through which cell derives energy to do the work. This is because of mitochondria we are able to get the energy and the heat is produced in our body. That is the reason why we call mitochondria as powerhouse of the cell. Now let us learn about ribosomes. These are small granule-like structures present in the cytoplasm of a cell. They are generally called as ribosomes and they are formed of RNA and proteins. There are two types of these ribosomes. Generally, the major function of ribosomes is to synthesize the proteins. That means they help in production of proteins. And mostly these ribosomes, they are attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. That's the reason why we call those endoplasmic reticulum as rough endoplasmic reticulum. Well, now let's study about plastids. As you can see here, the chloroplast inside the rheoleaf. So for this activity, what we have to do is we have to take a rheoleaf and tear it with a single stroke and take the thin margin part and observe it under the microscope. You can see these structures under the microscope. Here inside the cells, the small granule-like structures which you are able to see are called as chloroplast. Similar kind of structures can be observed in algae also. When you take a algal strand and observe it under a compound microscope, you can see the small granule-like structures inside these, and these structures are called as chloroplast. Now, how many types of plastids are there? See, each plant cell, it consists of nearly 3 major types of plastids. They are chloroplast, chromoplast and leucoplast. As you can see from the picture itself, the chloroplasts are generally green colored structures. They contain green color pigment in them which is called as chlorophyll. And this chlorophyll is very important for the process called photosynthesis. The next one is chromoplast. Chromoplasts are generally colored plastids. They give the color yellow, orange, red color to the fruits, flowers, etc. And leucoplasts are generally colorless plastids. They are generally white in color. So the white color flowers and the fleshy part of the white fleshy part of the fruits are generally because of leucoplast. As you can see the structure of chloroplasts are of different shapes. They are disc shaped, oval shaped, etc. And as you have seen it in the algal strands also, they look like small spherical structures inside a cell. So the diameter of these chloroplasts in higher plant can vary between 4 to 10 microns. The primary function of these chloroplasts is to trap the solar energy, which helps in the process of photosynthesis. Having learnt about chloroplast, now let us learn about vacuole. As you can see, vacuole is a small air space present inside a cell. These are large empty spaces which are generally present inside the cell are called as vacuoles, and they are generally fluid filled sac-like structures. In animal cells, vacuoles are small in size, while in plant cells they are very large. In mature plant cells, these vacuoles, they may occupy the entire cell. Sometimes the vacuoles they even push the other cell organelles towards the margins of the cells, as you can see in the picture. Vacuoles, they help in maintaining the turgor pressure within the cell, and they also help in exporting the unwanted substances from the cells. That means they help in sending out the unwanted substances from inside the cell. Now comes a question, are cells flat? So usually when we see the cell under the microscope, they appear completely flat, or sometimes they can be seen two-dimensional. But actually, the cells are not flat. In reality, cells do have length, breadth and thickness. We can easily see the length and breadth with the help of these compound microscope. Since we cannot see the thickness of the cells under the microscope, we tend to think that these are flat objects. But there are few easy ways to observe the thickness of the cell. Like, the easiest method is to slightly change the focus while viewing the plant cell and slide and look at the cell wall. So you can find the thickness of the cell. From this we can clearly understand that cells do have three dimensions. They are three-dimensional, they are not two-dimensional ones. And see, each cell thus acquires its structure and ability to function now because of the organization of its membrane and membrane bound organelles which are present inside the cells. Now comes the question, where do these cells come from? See, from the observations it is very clear that all the living organisms are made up of cells and they have nucleus in them, except for prokaryotic cells. Around 1838 and 39, two scientists, they have expressed it in the form of a theory. The first scientist was Matthias Jacob Schleiden, who is a botanist. That means he studies about plants. And the second scientist is Theodor Schwann. He is a zoologist. That means he studies about animal cells. So both these scientists, they have made meticulous observations and they have noted that all the plants and animals are made up of cells, and they took a bold step of generalizing this in the form of a theory. See, by the time these two people were generalizing a theory, several other scientists, they were noting the observations, and they have noted that the plants and animals are made up of cells, but no one came forward to give a theory that the plants and animals are made up of cells. So the credit for propounding the cell theory goes to them. And it is also noteworthy that there was a gap of nearly 200 years between Robert Hooke's first observing a cell under the microscope and the formulation of cell theory. See, Schleiden and Schwann together, they have formulated the cell theory, but they have failed to explain how the new cells are formed. Later, another scientist whose name is Rudolf Karl Virchow in the year 1855 first explained that the new cells could be formed by the division of pre-existing cells. He also modified the hypothesis which was made by Schleiden and Schwann and has given a new cell theory. So according to him, the cell theory as understood today is based on two cardinal principles. The first one is all the living organisms are composed of cells and their products. And the second one is all the cells arise from the pre-existing cells. So these are the two principles of cell theory which was given by these three scientists. I hope you understood this lesson, and if you like this video, then please do like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.